Okay, and here we go. So we're going to talk about macular degeneration and the evidence that we can put an end to a progressive and irreversible disease. Now, that is such an outlandish statement that any of my colleagues looking at this would go, "What? What are you talking about? That's not possible. What do you? That can't. How can that be? What evidence could you possibly have that we can put an end to a progressive and irreversible disease that we've been, looking at for the past 30 years? I've been in practice since 1987, so that's about 34 years. And all that time we had nothing to really do for macular degeneration. We'd say don't smoke and eat green leafy vegetables and try to stay healthy and the like. So not a lot possible. But here we are saying that we think we can put an end to a progressive and irreversible disease. And that's why we're here. Now, a second title could be, we talked about this in the preliminary time we had, what can be done about aging in the eye and the body? So I've got macular degeneration in red because we're going to focus 95% on this condition. But aging also can, worsen diabetic retinopathy, cataract, glaucoma, dry eye, and other associated conditions. So what we're going to talk about actually does go beyond the macula. So that's a secondary title we could have used. So I'm George Rozakis. I've been in practice for about 34 years. I started out as a biomedical engineer. I trained down at Duke in ophthalmology. And if there's anything I can say about myself is I'm a researcher. I'm an innovator. And I think it's because of my engineering background. I love doing research. I did research when I was at Duke. I was one of the first in the country to do PRK, first in the country to do LASIK, inside the eye contact lenses. I mean, I've just always been at the cutting edge of the things that I found fascinating. I have patents in LASIK. So you say, well, wow, why are you talking about LASIK? Well, wait, I'm confused. No, don't get confused. I also have been very deeply focused on something called the anti-aging medicine movement for about 15 years. And this is the background that has led to this presentation. Now, I work with a PhD in biochemistry. His name is Brian Bakke, and he's on the call right now. Brian is a PhD in biochemistry and also organic chemistry. He's like double boarded. He did great work in DNA therapy. He also did something really interesting, is he went to Columbia in New York, and he participated in a master's course on human nutrition. And his master's thesis, focused on macular degeneration. And that was a very significant time in his life. He learned a great deal. It took him about 3 years to get that master's degree. And so we have him as well. He did his postdoctoral research on something called methylation, which I'm going to teach you about today, which is really hot stuff. And the two of us have been at it for 10 years, applying anti-aging science in many different aspects. So let's talk about the disease as you understand it. Okay, so here is a normal looking retina. But you know what? It's now possible to know if this eye may in fact develop macular degeneration. So we can actually catch it early. So for the many of you who are in the audience right now who are saying, well, my mom had it, my dad had it, I don't want to get it, I don't have it yet, I want to prevent it, you should be aware of the fact that there is a technology in the marketplace that can test you to see if you are at risk for macular degeneration. The problem is the guys who have this technology, they don't know what to do with you if they find that you're abnormal. And if they did find that you were abnormal, then what we're going to talk about in this presentation could be very helpful to you and those doctors. So here's the disease in its earliest phases, okay? These little tiny spots are called drusen. Now this eye probably still sees close to 20/20, but it's starting. And it's a progressive disease, and that's the issue. It's like, how do you stop it from progressing? Like, what is going on back here to cause this macula to start degenerating? And if it becomes like this, then we have more significant issues, right? You can easily imagine this person not being able to see 20/20. This eye might be able to see 20/80. And, what can we do here to help, this situation? We don't want it to get to this level of disease. This is called geographic atrophy. This is very advanced structural changes. We want to stop it before this, because once this happens, then blind spots occur in the eye. So this is what's going on out there right now. Some of you in the audience are like this. Some of you are like this. Some of you are just starting the process. Some of you may have nothing going on whatsoever. That's what we're dealing with. So this audience can be benefited by everything we are going to talk about today. Although this condition here This is looking a bit more irreversible. This is serious damage. And then there's wet disease, and that's when new blood vessels start to grow inside the eye. And for those of you who said that you're getting injected because there's something in the eye. It's a growth factor that has to be taken out of the eye to make these blood vessels go away. And that's wet disease. And that occurs in about 10-15% of people. So that's the current state of affairs in macular degeneration. And if you look around the internet, you'll see articles like this. Now, what to do about this disease? And they say the following lifestyle changes are recommended. Don't smoke, exercise regularly, keep your blood pressure in normal range, maintain a healthy weight, eat a diet high in fruits, vegetables, and fish, and low foods that rapidly rise blood sugar, and protect your eyes from overexposure to sunlight with sunglasses and hats. Then it says there is no treatment or cure for advanced dry macular degeneration, but a specific high-dose formula of antioxidants, all of you are taking it probably, called ARADs, and zinc, may delay or prevent intermediate macular degeneration from progressing to the advanced stage. That's all we got. We have those vitamins, and I'll tell you more about those vitamins later, but that's all we got. We have the ARADS vitamins, and don't smoke and try to eat a healthy diet. That's not enough. This is not enough because it's still progressing. It's still a progressive disease. And again, these vitamins, they unfortunately do not prevent the disease. That's annoying. They do not prevent the eyes from going wet. That's very annoying. They only help 1 in 17 people. And somebody actually sent me a message the other day and said, where'd you get that number? And I sent them links on the internet where it is 1 in 17, 5.6%. And those people will be helped in the sense that it will slow down the progression of the condition. It's not a lot. It does not improve vision. So it has some value, right? 1 in 17, but not as much as people think. What most basically do is just watch dry disease progress to wet. You're told don't smoke, take your vitamins, eat green leafy vegetables, and then call me if it gets worse. This has been the standard of care for decades. It's not enough. We got to do more. Until now, we have something to offer, and this is a paper we published on something called the homing method, which I'm going to teach you about today. And this paper is available to you. We can put the link in the chat of a paper that Dr. Baki and I put together on a way to do more for macular degeneration. And that paper stems from the anti-aging movement. So what is that all about? Well, it's out there. It's everywhere. And anti-aging is a very big field of medicine. And what's its purpose? It seeks to treat root causes of disease by fixing cell biochemistry. That's the key to this. If we're going to help your cells in your eye, we have to fix the biochemistry inside the cells in your eye. And that's what I've been involved in for the past 15 years. And that's why we have Dr. Baki on board, because he has a PhD in biochemistry. So this whole presentation is going to basically be about what happens when you fix the biochemistry inside cells. That's what this is about. Now, we applied this methodology to other conditions. We applied it, of all things, to migraine. And back in 2015, we won the Advancements in Healthcare Award because we applied our homing method to migraine, and we were very excited about that. You see, it's powerful, and we really wouldn't be here if this methodology didn't have value. And now let me tell you the story about how we started to realize it can help the macula. And the story starts with this lady here. This is my mom, and my mom has she's passed now, macular degeneration. And I put her on an anti-aging program to help, make her feel good, make her feel better, age more gracefully. And she did reach about 90 years of age. But I noticed something about my mom. Her significant dry macular degeneration stayed stable from year to year to year. And I'm looking at this, scratching my head saying, she's still hanging in there. That's interesting. And her sister, my Aunt Mary, she lost her central vision. She went all the way down to 2400. So that was the first clue that this program we put her on might in fact benefit the macula. First clue. Then we had a second clue. This was a patient who claimed she could dark adapt better. You know how it is when you walk into a movie theater and you can't see the seats very well because your eyes are not adjusted to the low light conditions in the movie theater. Well, this person was put on an anti-aging program, or as I like to call it, a program. And she said, oh, by the way, I can see better when I go into a movie theater. I said, what do you mean you can see better? Because, when I go in, it's really hard to see and find my seats. But now, after the program, I can see easier, faster, better in the darkness. I can dark adapt better. Now, that was a very major statement because for me as an ophthalmologist, I said, wait a minute. If you can see faster, I'm doing something for you. The program is doing something beneficial to the back of your eye because I know the biochemistry of converting from bright light to dark light. So that was the second clue. The third clue really was earth-shattering. This was a case in 2013. 2013, 8 years ago. So long ago. Terrible. Should have done this 5 years ago. Anyway, so this patient comes in and she says, I can read fine print again. And she very clearly explained to me that she had her Kindle, and because of her macular degeneration, she had to set her Kindle to the large type to read. And then she says, but after she was put on our program, about a month later, she had her Kindle at the small size lettering again. I was so happy I could read again, etc. So she is telling me flat out, because of the program we put her on, she could see better. And, you know, this is not supposed to happen, folks. This is not supposed to happen. So when ARADS 2 came out back in 2013, we were, you know, antsy. We said, oh my God, you know, we got to get the word out on this. And so we put out this press release saying, look, you can improve vision in macular degeneration using hormones, genetics, methylation, nutrition, and antioxidative therapy. Basically, this was a foreshadow to the paper we published many years later, almost 8 years later. So this was the first of its kind, this observation, very important observation. So in 2020, when everything was locked down, Dr. Baki and I thought about what to do next. And we said, you know what? We need to focus. I'm an ophthalmologist. We have my mother. We have a lady who could see better in the movie theater. We have that other lady who could read her fine print again. There's a big problem in dry macular degeneration. The problem is the vitamins don't really do much. Let's focus. Let's focus on macular degeneration. So in 2020, we did or treated 365 eyes. That's a lot. Some had dry disease, some had wet disease. Because we wanted to, see, because, the problem with something like anti-aging medicine, it's always anecdotal. I have one case that did well here, one case that did well there. We wanted to really take a deeper dive into macular degeneration. So we did that, and about half of them saw better. They were reporting an improvement, just like the lady who could read the Kindle or the lettering on her Kindle at the small type size. We had half of the people that were put on our program with less than 12 months of follow-up were able to claim they could see better. And that is monumental. That's not supposed to happen. The comparable improvement in vision with the vitamins you're taking is basically zero. So here we are looking at a 48% improvement. So now we have a new concept here. It's a word that is never used in macular degeneration. And that concept is reversibility and stabilization. These people are not getting worse, and a good number of them are seeing better. That is exciting. That's why we're here today, to tell you that's something good. And I'll tell you how this all happened. Okay, so don't worry, I'll explain the science to it as well. So then you say to me, well, wait a minute, how reversible is it? Are you going to get me back to 2020? I really wish I could get you back to 2020. I wish I could have treated you when you were 2030. Then maybe I could have gotten you back to 2020. But generally speaking, I would estimate that people see about 1 to 3 lines better on the eye chart if they're going to get better. Okay? But this is a key issue for those of you who are thinking about this right now. You want to catch it early. Getting you back to 2020 is really difficult if you're 2100. A lot of irreversible damage has occurred. So the sooner people are treated, the sooner we could stop it and reverse it and get back about 1 to 3 lines. And that's new. That's not been done before. That's exciting. So therefore, again, we must catch the disease as early as possible. So let's go back to the existing way the world is operating. If a person comes in with a normal macula, like many of you in the audience who have only the desire to prevent, if you test positive that you're going to develop macular degeneration, we need to treat you now so you don't develop the disease at all. That's our belief, and that's important. Prevention is actually becoming the big new gorilla in the room. If we can stop and reverse, then prevention is the future for macular degeneration. And we got to catch this disease as early as we possibly can. So that's one example. If we can catch this eye early, then we can stabilize it. The person can continue to see very, well, and we can do good for them, and even hopefully get back 1 or 2 lines of vision if they've lost a little bit. Now, this is a situation where the condition is further progressed, right? This eye might be 20/80 or 2100. I can't get this eye back to 20/20, but if I can stop it and get it from, let's say, 2100 back to 20/80 or 20/70, that's a good thing. That's an improvement. That's a good thing. Now, this situation, I don't expect much. This is that form of geographic atrophy. So there are certain situations where we can't get it all back, and that's unfortunate. So that's exciting. So what's the message? Like, how do you summarize all this? Well, you say, look, in dry macular degeneration, we must catch the disease as soon as possible before changes become irreversible. But reversibility is now possible. And that is what the anecdotal information told us. My mother, the lady who could see better in the movie theater, the lady with the Kindle who could read fine print again, and those hundreds of patients who we did a study on in 2020, and about 50% of them could see better. That's the message. So I would rewrite the textbooks now. I would rewrite them. Okay, I would keep this: don't smoke, you exercise, blood pressure, weight, diet, etc. There is now a new treatment for dry macular degeneration that goes beyond the use of a high dose of zinc formula of antioxidant vitamins and zinc that benefits only 1 in 17. That's the ARADS vitamins that many of you are on. This new strategy that we just talked about holds the promise of stabilization of vision or reversal of vision by 1 to 3 lines. Given this exciting new treatment, it is imperative to treat AMD as soon as possible. This is what I would write if I could rewrite what's on the internet right now. So we now have a way to do more for macular degeneration, and that is why we're here. We're not done. Let's talk about wet macular degeneration. Okay, we're not done yet. There's more. This is a condition where blood vessels start growing abnormally. It happens suddenly and without warning, which is so annoying, isn't it? Like, you could be minding your own business one day and you have dry disease. Next thing you know, your vision changes. You remember your doctor saying, call me if it changes. You call him or her, and he looks into your eyes and he goes, oh, I think you've turned wet. And that's not a fun situation, because now you're committed to going to the eye doctor every month or 2 months or 3 months to have an injection of a medication into the eye to remove those things called growth factors, which I'll tell you about. Now, we know the cause. This is important. We know the cause of the abnormal growth of blood vessels. It's called VEGF. It has a name. So all of you who are getting injected, you're getting injected with anti-VEGF medications, vascular endothelial growth factor. This is the bad guy, and it's a blood vessel growth factor. So the reason many of you in the audience who said you have wet disease are getting injected is because they're trying to remove VEGF from the eye. Okay, got that? Now, we did not believe we could help wet macular degeneration until Patty. I'm going to tell you now about Patty. What an amazing case this person was. This is Patty. Now, I'm going to play you a video, because Patty, if it wasn't for Patty, we might also not be here today. But Patty was an amazing case that I want you to really experience and understand. This is Patty.
What if you could prevent it from happening by supercharging your cells?
I was struggling. I was having a lot of distortion, almost a fishbowl effect out of my right eye, and I was having trouble focusing.
The science of nourishing cells based on your specific genetics and biochemistry. Patty had a hysterectomy which impacted her hormone level, but her test also revealed
she had genetic errors which impacted her methylation pathways, and she had really major problems with nutrition. Certain foods that she was eating caused a tremendous amount of inflammation in her body.
Within 3 months, my distortion was easing greatly. And within 6 months, that was completely gone, and my eyesight was crystal clear.
8 months after, that mound is gone, and Patty no longer needs those eye injections or even her glasses.
Okay, that's Patty. What an amazing story. So put yourself in my shoes. So here I am. Here's Patty, truck driver. She has wet macular degeneration. Here's the wet macular degeneration here. And she was receiving injections every month. She received 8 months of injections, and this would not budge, would not get better. So I said, sure, we can try the program, and we did. And lo and behold, that mound of new blood vessels caused by VEGF, caused by that vascular endothelial growth factor, just dissipated and went away. And then something almost magical happened. Her retina doctor looked at this situation. This is 2015. And he said, you know what? I don't think I need to inject you anymore. So he stopped injecting her. And she has not needed an injection for, or since. We're talking 6 years. Now, we were in shock as to like how this could have happened. It wasn't obvious at the time, you know, why it occurred. And then finally, we looked and looked, and we found that this VEGF substance, this bad growth factor, we could actually reduce it in the body, and that is done by turning off the gene that makes the VEGF growth factor. There's something you may have heard the word epigenetics. Epigenetics has to do with whether your genes are turned on or turned off. And if you have a gene, which we all do, that makes VEGF, if we can turn that gene off, then basically our program is acting like an injection, except there's no needle involved. We just turn off the gene that makes VEGF. So our understanding of why Patty got better was because her retina doctor was injecting her, which is fine, but we were also turning off the gene that makes VEGF. And so that combination of effort is what got her over the hump to the point where she got better. That was our hypothesis, our belief. So as I said, in 2020, we focused on 365 eyes. About half of them had wet disease also. And we had a whopping 60% of people notice an improvement because of our program. Many of them needed fewer injections, and others simply saw better. And that is a big number. That's a big number. And it's consistent with the anecdotal. It's consistent with the scientific literature. There's no question. The literature clearly states that what we do in our programs can lower VEGF, and that's going to only be good for anyone who's got wet disease, because we can allow or create a situation where there is less need for injections. Okay, so if you're on a program such as ours, we're going to be lowering your VEGF growth factor levels, and so you should need fewer injections. And it also implies something else. It implies that we can stop the conversion of dry to wet. It implies that, okay? I'm not saying it will, but it certainly makes sense, because if you have dry disease and we're able to lower these growth factors in your eye with dry disease, the motivation for the eye to become wet should be less. So we think we can actually help reduce the conversion of dry to wet disease. And that's really exciting and solid scientifically, and it's consistent with our studies, and it's consistent with the anecdotal observations we made in the past. So here's an example of a patient who said to us, in answer to your question on how I am doing, I started having the shot in my eye about a year ago for every 4 weeks. Since that time, we have gone from 4 weeks to 6 weeks to 8 weeks to 10 weeks. And on my last appointment last week, 12 weeks. I asked Dr. Thompson what I should do going forward, and he said, keep taking the supplements for the program. Just quoting him directly. Okay, that's beautiful, right? The spacing out of injections is an indication that this person has less need for injections. And what could be doing that? I think it's because we're able to help turn off the gene that makes the growth factors, the VEGF growth factors. So wouldn't it be nice if we could take this eye and turn off the genes that are making VEGF so it never becomes wet? And the same thing for this eye, turn off the genes that could have caused this eye to become wet, because we don't want this. We don't want wet macular degeneration because, as for many of you in the audience know, it's a hassle, it's an aggravation. It's not a painful injection. Most injections are done quite well. But, you know, you just want to do as few injections as possible and find other ways of benefiting this situation. And I think we have a way to do that now. So how would I rewrite this? I would add this in orange. I would say, regarding wet disease, the new method, which we're talking about today, the homing method, it has a name, the method can reduce the stimulus that causes the dry form of the disease to progress to the wet form of the disease and reduce the need for injections. I think that's a fair statement. I think it's consistent with the scientific literature. It's consistent with the study we did. And based on that, I think this would be the additional piece of knowledge that we're trying to convey to you and also to my colleagues. We got to do more than the vitamins with zinc that benefit only 1 in 17. We've got to stabilize the back of the eye and try to get back some vision and try our best to not let the eye become wet. And the sooner we treat, the better. And that's what this paper is about, the homing trial, a retrospective pilot study on the efficacy of personalized bioidentical hormone, dietary supplement, and nutrition care for age-related macular degeneration. And all those statistics are in here. So in dry AMD, we must catch the disease as soon as possible before changes become irreversible. You know that. We talked about that. But reversibility is now possible. You know that. We talked about that. And we should be able to reduce the conversion of dry to wet disease because this capability of lowering the growth factors is simply available to anybody, whether you're dry or wet. And we know that the problem in the eye are these growth factors. So I think there should be a new standard of care for wet disease. I think it would be wonderful if we could enhance the injections by the retina doctors. I am not telling the retina doctors what to do. They do whatever they feel they need to do. I'm just trying to make the situation better for the patient and the retina doctor, make those injections more effective. Hopefully he will see to it to reduce the frequency of injections instead of every month, maybe every 2 months, every 3 months, and extend the time the injections work, because that's how you would reduce the frequency. Because if we lower the VEGF in the eye with the program we have, it's going to make those injections last longer. That would allow him to reduce the frequency of injections. And overall, I think we can reduce the conversion of dry to wet disease. This is what I'm seeing. This is what makes sense to me. It's very solid science that we can reduce the growth factors in the eye. Okay, so we're moving on. We got through the clinical part. I'm assuming everyone is wanting to go on. I want to take a little breather here. We just did a lot. We talked about a lot. So with your permission, may I continue on with a deeper dive into the science? Like what is this homing method? Yeah, and also give me a feel for how the presentation was so far. So let me take a little sip of something to drink here. If you could go into the chat, and if you have any comments, it sounds interesting, cool, I got it, I understood it, it was too complicated, it was not too complicated. Because I'm now going to take you into the homing method. So I really appreciate some feedback on what I've taught you so far. Have you heard about it already? Is this old news for you, or is this new? I just like to get a little bit of feedback, because if you give me feedback, I can do a better job next time I give this presentation. How can I make it better? Okay. All right. I'm told that you all are saying that I should please keep going. It's encouraging. Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Thank you for the feedback. When you give these presentations, you do your darndest to make it interesting. I don't want to put you guys to sleep, and I want to get it so that it's clear. You want clarity, and you want clarity. And now we're going to go into the homing method, and how does this all work? Okay, we're going to get a little deeper on the science side, but it's not going to be too painful. Okay, I think many of you know this already. Your biochemistry is made from your genes. No one could argue that, right? You have genetics in every cell in your body. And your genes are a blueprint. You have 30,000 genes, and those 30,000 blueprints are there to make pieces and parts of your biochemistry, which is shown in the background here. This is biochemistry. Okay? Now, there's something called epigenetics, and that is a big new word I want you to really grasp. And epigenetics is about turning on those good genes. Because when you get older, part of the quote-unquote degeneration process is things happen in your body where your genes start to turn off. That's not good, right? Because what's going to happen if your genes start to turn off? What's going to happen is you're going to have dysfunction. There's going to be problems with your health because you need your genes turned on to make the pieces and parts of your biochemistry. And that's what epigenetics is. Okay? So a lot of what we are doing to help patients is turn on their good genes. And there are papers that are being written now that connect macular degeneration to epigenetics and how to use epigenetics to create strategies to produce something therapeutic. So it's happening in the media. This is 2021 in not the media, in the literature. Okay? Epigenetics, it's a new word for you. Now, here is a homing method. To improve biochemistry, we apply our homing method. That includes reversing hormonal deficiencies, reducing oxidative stress, that's the O in homing, reversing low methylation, we're going to teach you about that, reducing inflammation, improving nutrition, and compensating for genetic errors. Okay, this is the homing method. Now, it's not one thing medicine. One thing medicine is just not very cool. There's nothing cool about that. Macular degeneration is a complicated disease. You know, we're not going to solve it with one thing, okay? And the key to what we have discovered is that you have to do all of these things simultaneously. Reverse hormone deficiencies, reduce oxidative stress, reverse low methylation, reduce inflammation, improve nutrition, and compensate for genetic errors. Okay, let's go through those. Okay, so again, the homing method, its purpose is to improve cell function by improving biochemistry. That's the key. And if we don't improve cell function, we lose structure. Not too complicated, right? I mean, here's a perfectly normal retina. But if we lose function, the biochemistry, what makes a healthy retina, then disease happens. And then we have this mess. This is a loss of structure. And this is basically what aging is about. We lose biochemical function, and then our structure changes. We look older, we get older, you know, things start to not work right, and we have to fix that by fixing biochemistry. So how do we do that? Hormones. Poor hormones have been given such a bad rap over the last 50 years. It's really a crime. It's one of the worst things that ever happened in medicine. If you truly use bioidentical, healthy, normal, logical hormones and not drugs that pretend to be hormones, you can safely activate good genes. Low hormones happen with aging and lead to many symptoms and diseases. All of us in this room could talk about that. What started with menopause and andropause and sleep issues, fatigue, arthritis, on and on and on, osteoporosis, heart disease, elevated cholesterol, all of these aggravations have as a common denominator in many instances a problem related to hormone decline. Hormone decline is not good. And me personally, I take my hormones every day. My wife takes her hormones every day, and Dr. Baki's family takes their hormones every day. And I've done that for 15 years because I know that my hormonal levels have declined, and because of that, symptoms occur, and that's not a good thing. It's so obvious, it's just so obvious that restoring hormonal levels has great value. Now, I was on to hormones back in 2008. I wrote something in Life Extension magazine where I was talking about my strong belief that hormones had a lot to do with macular degeneration. They had something to do with the drusen and those little spots in the back of the eye. I believed it deeply, and I had lots of reasons to believe it. And then when I found this paper, I was so happy because this paper talked about hormones. They were called neurosteroids, same thing, in the retina. And this paper from the Italian literature went through all the hormones we were using back then and clearly laid out the case that the retina needs hormones, which is what I always thought and believed, and the literature started to back me up. And I also wondered to myself, what about these spots. And then we learned that they're full of cholesterol. And it turns out there's a relationship between hormones and cholesterol. When hormones decline, cholesterol goes up. It's pretty much that simple. And the reason is because cholesterol is what your body uses to make hormones. You didn't know that, did you? Your body uses cholesterol to make hormones. So when your hormones start to decline, which is easily measured in a blood test, your cholesterol starts to go up. But the body is trying to make hormones, but it can't. And I think that's what's going on in the macula. I think this macula needs hormones, which it does, we know from the paper, but it can't make those hormones. So it accumulates cholesterol. That's the thesis we came up with as to why it matters. But beyond that, just the theory of it all, there's papers coming out now on how hormone therapy can be protective for age-related macular degeneration. So the literature is coming through finally, which is great. This was published in 2020. And here's a great paper that was published in 2017 talking about DHEA, which is yet another one of the hormones that we look at. And they found that when people have low levels of DHEA, they have more macular degeneration. Now, Dr. Bakke and I, we test DHEA levels all the time. I've been doing it for 10 years. And it's amazing how low the levels can be. And when we give back the DHEA that people are missing, they just feel so much better. And I think it's one of the strategies that benefits the macula as well. There's relationships here. Low hormones matter. But remember, we're not going to stop with one thing. Okay, this is not one thing medicine. We got to talk about the rest of it, because hormones alone is not enough. You have to do it all. That's so important. So let's move on. Oxidative stress. Oxidation will damage cells, and there are ways to turn on genes that fight oxidation. That's cool. So here's a cell, and if we can do something to make this cell better able to defend itself against oxidative stress, then we can keep that cell from dying. And as no one disagrees that oxidative stress is one of the factors in macular degeneration. And then we have methylation. This is what Dr. Bakke did his research on. Methylation is really cool. It has a tremendous amount to do with epigenetics, okay, the turning on and turning off of genes. In fact, methylation, they show this picture here. It's a beautiful picture of a gene. And these two little spots here, the artist is trying to show methyl groups, methylation, the methyl group attaching to the gene, because by attaching to the gene, it determines whether this gene is going to be turned on or turned off. And one of the realities of life is that bad methylation is common everywhere. It's a very common problem, and it's been written to be associated with many conditions. Heart disease, no question. Cancer. When I read a paper that connected methylation to every cancer, I'll never say every, say 98% of cancers, that amazed me. And here I'm looking in the literature, I type in methylation cancer, and boom, 1,000 articles appear. It's like, wow, this is important. So cancer, heart disease is connected to methylation. Diabetic retinopathy, cataract, and macular degeneration are all connected. So see, this is sort of like a link to this epigenetic concept, this idea we got to get our genes back to work to make the pieces and parts that we need to have good, solid biochemistry. Methylation is important, and it also participates in like 1,000 different chemical reactions. So we test the blood for abnormalities related to methylation, and if we find them, we treat them. So here's a paper talking about methylation and macular degeneration, showing differential methylation. In other words, if you have macular degeneration, your methylation patterns are going to be different than if you don't have it. So they're figuring out that methylation matters in macular degeneration. There's more papers like that. Okay, we're almost done. Inflammation, another factor that can absolutely worsen or cause macular degeneration. Well, there's ways we can turn on genes that control inflammation, and many illnesses are related to inflammation. And finally, and here's a paper on C-reactive protein. And what is that? It's something in the blood that we can test to see if you have excessive inflammation. And if you do, then we create a program for you to bring down the C-reactive protein level, because it's a marker of inflammation, and that connects to age-related macular degeneration. nutrition matters a lot. It can be linked to oxidative stress. It can be linked to inflammation. Nutrition is very powerful if done correctly. If we help you eat smart and not poison yourself with food, then we're ahead of the game to seek improvement in your innate biochemistry in your body and your eye. And then finally, the G for homing stands for genetics. The best way I can explain this to you is many of us have genetic errors. Some of them are pretty common, like the MTHFR genetic error. So if you have an MTHFR genetic error, you're going to be missing something in your biochemistry, shown by this missing domino. So here are the dominoes going about their business, in normal biochemistry. Then bam, they hit this roadblock. This roadblock here, and the biochemistry starts to falter. It doesn't work as well as it used to because we're missing a domino. Well, that domino is MTHFR. So we simply give the patient the thing it can't make enough of so we can get this biochemistry working properly. Because again, what are we trying to do? We're trying to help the biochemistry, turning on the good genes, reducing inflammation, oxidative stress, eating properly. All of these things are key, and we must address all of the causes, all of these homing causes, or we will not get the result. That's really important. Sorry to say it, but you got to follow the program. The people who get better are the people who comply. When Dr. Bakke and I have our conversations, usually I'm driving down to Columbus, and we'll talk on the phone, and we'll talk about the patients, and we say, the ones who are not getting better fast enough are the ones that are not complying. It's simple as that. We're getting the results. People have to comply. You can't, not comply. It's like a car with 4 flat tires. You want to get back on the highway, but you only want to fill up 3 of the 4 flat tires. I'm sorry. That one flat tire is going to make it harder for you to get back on the highway, if not impossible. So I'll say it again. You have to address all the homing causes, or we will not get the result, or not as good a result. Okay, and this is one of the big ideas, actually, of what we are telling our peers, our colleagues. Say, guys, forget this one thing medicine. I took my antioxidant vitamins. That should help my macula. No, it's not going to help. We already know that. It's 1 in 17. It doesn't do a darn thing. I'm eating a little better. Well, that's going to help, but will it help as much as if you're eating better and your hormones are better and you're opening up your genetics to do more work to reduce oxidative stress, etc.? That's 4 flat tires. You can't get back on the highway until you fill up all 4 flat tires. So that's important. So you got to remember, these cells, this is the anatomy of the back of the eye. Here are the cells we're talking about. Here they are. These are the cells that become sick. And when these cells become sick, you start to develop dry macular degeneration. And they need help. They need help. They're sick. They need to be resuscitated, so to speak, so they don't die. And if they do get sick and weak, then these blood vessels down here start to grow up, and now you have wet macular degeneration. But if we can catch it early and comply with the program, we have a great shot at arresting the condition and trying to get back some vision loss. So the homing method, and I told you this at the beginning, has many applications. It applies to migraine. We briefly talked about that. It applies to dry. It applies to wet macular. It absolutely applies to diabetic retinopathy. I know that from anecdotal observations over the last 10 years that anybody with diabetic retinopathy does well on the program. I mean, sometimes dramatically well, shockingly well. So there's no doubt in my mind that if a patient had diabetic retinopathy, they would want to be on this program. And then there's retinitis pigmentosa. I told you about this earlier in the presentation. You see, this is a genetic disease, retinitis pigmentosa. But a genetic disease, we can't fix the genetic disease. The person has it. It's a genetic problem that causes a degeneration of the retina called retinitis pigmentosa. But hold on a second. The progression of the retinitis pigmentosa is going to be determined by the genetic error plus the homing abnormalities. Don't forget that. If you've got cells inside the retina that have the genetic error leading to retinitis pigmentosa or Stargardt's disease or other genetic diseases, the progression of the disease will be dependent on the genetic error, which we can't fix. Sorry, can't fix that yet. But if you add to that all of these abnormalities, these diseases will progress faster. And we had a patient from Florida who had retinitis pigmentosa, and she was in bad shape, really bad shape. And we treated her, and she had a remarkable improvement. And all we did was take away the homing abnormalities that she had. And that made her a lot better. And that was very, very exciting. So even genetic diseases, we can, I believe firmly, that we can slow down the progression of them if we take away these other factors that are causing progression. That is what I wanted to tell that person who asked me a question earlier about Stargardt's disease. And then other conditions, menopause, ED, reducing cancer risk, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, these are all related. These are all related to this underlying issue of biochemical disturbances and loss of normal function leading to loss of structure. It's very nice when people say, I'm sleeping better, I have less fatigue, etc. So it's a great thing. That's why it's called anti-aging medicine. People definitely feel better, think better when their homing abnormalities are resolved. We see that a lot. And I want you to also understand that the homing method is what I call physiologic medicine. It's physiologic medicine. We live in a world that is dominated by pharmaceutical medical care. That's what this black arrow implies. And you go anywhere in the healthcare system and there's a drug for you. It's very, very weighted to a pharmaceutical approach to management. There's also a physiologic approach, helping the body help itself by fixing all the things we just talked about. And we have to, I think, this is what I do for myself, you want the best of all worlds. You want to balance a physiologic approach, which is the homing method, and a pharmaceutical approach. I'm not against drugs, but let's not forget that a lot can be done physiologically. If you'd like to learn about the Macular Program, I guess you've been reading this already. It says press 1, because with your permission, I'd like to tell you about something called the Macular Program. And then after we do that, we're going to go into Q&A again, and Dr. Baki and I will answer your questions that you have. So, okay, so I'm being told that you guys want me to continue. Okay, beautiful. Well, let me tell you about the Macular Program, how we do what we do. Okay, so we want to know about your eyes and your health history. I want to know about your health history, because when we make programs, we strive to benefit as much as we can, not just the eye, whether it's dry or wet, but also your other medical issues. So that's important, and we have a system in place to do that. We need lab testing. Now, I put LabCorp down just to let you know that we have an arrangement with LabCorp where should you need a discount in the cost of labs if your insurance has run out or something like that, LabCorp has given us a huge discount. Maybe your insurance will pay for it anyway, so it doesn't really matter, but LabCorp is the lab we like to work with. Doesn't have to be LabCorp, but just a call out to LabCorp because they did give us they gave you a great discount on labs. And then we look at your history, we look at your labs, and we make your homing program. And your is italicized because every care plan we create is customized to you. It's rare that you're going to see two care plans the same. And this takes time because some of you have complicated histories. Some of you are already taking a lot of vitamins and you're trying to do this on your own. And so we have to look at the playing field and look at the eye situation, look at the best medical history, look at the medications you're taking, look at what things you're already on, and make sense of it all so that we can put together your homing program. Okay, and there's a combination lock here because it's like a combination. We got to find the right combination to unlock your biochemistry. So that's why that visual is there. But we're still not done. We don't just say, here's your program, go start it. There's a strategy in how you start a program. And so we tell you how to start it, what to do day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, etc. Because, it's been a thought that these programs are like exercise. You don't just walk into the gym and just start lifting weights. Your body's not ready for that. So, we just start out slow and then work our way up as we turn on your genetics and turn on your genes and get your body moving in the right direction. Okay, so nothing to be afraid of. It's just a matter of, we don't just start the whole thing at one time. So we have to coach you on that. It's not hard, but it's what we do. Let me see here. Okay, there's two things being shown. You see where it says certified nutritionists? You will have access to nutritionists, actually, who will speak with you about what we do. And that's really cool. There's a slide missing here. I don't know where it went. But I'll just verbally say that we have the luxury of having nutritionists speak with you to give you pointers on how to eat. Sorry about that extra slide that's missing. And the next part of what we do is we have to make sure you're on the right program. We like to start out slow. We don't like to overdo it. And then we adjust your program over time. And about 6 months later, we do like to repeat labs. So we have to adjust your program, and we repeat labs usually at 6 months. A lot of you are going to have questions, and we have answers. We've answered just about any question you can imagine, that because we've been doing this for so long. So we're here to answer the questions that you have. And if you have questions, we'll give you answers. Now, regarding your eye doctor, we are very much actively pursuing eye doctors and getting them on board with this. But I thought about this the other day, and I said to myself, what exactly do I want the eye doctor to do? And what do you want the eye doctor to do? What we want the eye doctor to do, who's going to be looking at your eyes, is we want to know the following. This is almost a question that I want you to be asking your doctor when you're on the program. Based on my vision and scans, am I better, worse, or the same? This is the core. So I want your eye doctor to sort of stop what he's doing, take a good look at your exam, and look at your prior exams, and answer that question. And oftentimes people are going to come back and say things are getting better, or they're stable, but it's very rare that they're getting worse. Okay? This is consistent with what we talked about earlier, where we talked about people getting better or not changing. But that's the question we want. This is what I want from all the eye doctors who work with us, or your eye doctor. It's what you want. We want to know the following. Based on my vision and scans, am I better, worse, or the same? That's what we all want, and that's what we should ask for from the eye doctors who examine you. And if we have any difficulty working with any eye doctor, we'll find somebody else who will do that for you. It shouldn't be hard. It should not be a big deal. And if you have wet disease, we want to ask this question. Can we increase the time between injections or skip an injection if all looks good? That's really what we want. Because if you have wet disease, you go back to your doctor, he does his scans, and you say, hey, how am I doing? Am I better, worse, or the same? Do you think we can skip an injection or spread them out? How am I coming along? Because we're turning off the genes that make the growth factors. He's got the injection needle in his hand to reduce the growth factors. So we're trying to find a new balance between how often you need those injections, and that's the way to communicate to your eye care professional. And as we talked about, when we make our programs, we're going to do our best to help you with symptoms outside of your eyes, the non-ocular symptoms. That's it. That is the Macular Program.